I have a secret to tell you guys. I don't talk about it that much, but once in a while I do talk about it. But I had an addiction, and my drug of choice was sugar. Now, some of you are laughing right now because many of you don't think of sugar as an addiction, but it can be, and it will lead to dis-ease. And so if you are craving sugar, or if you are addicted to sugar, you're in the right space at the right time. Go get your paper and pencil because Dr. Joel Fuhrman is in the classroom, and he's not only a world-renowned New York Times bestselling author, he is a wonderful teacher and a wonderful healer. And he's going to teach us today how we can identify sugar cravings and end not only the craving, but potentially the addiction as well.
And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Hi, my name is Lillian McDermott, and I am a certified life coach and the host of Lillian McDermott Radio Show. If this is the first time that you've come onto the classroom, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Yes, my name is Lily, and I was a sugarholic. I've learned that there are certain ways that you can eat where you don't crave sugar anymore. And this has been my journey. And so today's class, I asked Dr. Joel Fuhrman if anyone can teach us about sugar addictions and craving and where it leads to, it is him. And I am really excited because he's here. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Joel Fuhrman is here to do just that. Welcome back to the classroom, Dr. Fuhrman.
Great to be here.
Thank you so much. You're so committed. You're such a committed man. And I'm really grateful for every time that we get to pick your brain and learn from you and share your wisdom. So share a little bit about your background, Dr. Fuhrman. I know you've been coming into the classroom since 2015 regularly, every month. Well, just recently we've changed to every other month, but you've been coming regularly. So we've gotten some new people that go, we've never heard of Dr. Fuhrman. Share a little bit about your background and what led you to becoming a Nutritarian.
Well, I actually started becoming a Nutritarian when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that I'm 70 years old, I've been, a health nut for more than probably 60 years or 55 years already.
Yeah.
My father was overweight and sickly, and he started reading natural hygiene literature when I was a teenager. And at first I thought he was crazy. I said, how could this be right and everybody else in the world be wrong, as a kid? But the more I was exposed to the science, the logic, and seeing people transform their health for the better, I realized this was very important, that nutrition was so powerful. And I made it my interest in my study to take that initial scientific hypotheses and view of the world and to try to see, well, what does the world's nutritional literature really show? And I've spent my life reviewing probably 40,000 studies on human nutrition. And then, writing books on it, but putting that together with clinical experience, having treated tens of thousands of people using nutritional excellence as a therapeutic modality to reverse disease. And I went to medical school and then became a board certified family physician with a specific intent to be a physician specializing in nutrition who can help people reverse and recover from all types of, people, whether they're young, old, children, or the elderly. I wanted to be able to take care of all types of medical conditions. And what I'm saying right now is my underlying premise, and what I found is the same dietary portfolio that maximally slows aging and leads to a longer lifespan, can add 20 years to your life by preventing heart attacks, strokes, cancers, and dementia, is also most therapeutically effective to enable people to reverse disease when they have a medical condition like diabetes, high blood pressure, psoriasis, asthma, headaches, fatigue. In other words, they're suffering with some chronic condition, and we establish the nutrient density in their cells that improve their immune function, and we allow them to, reduce their weight, and we unleash the miraculous self-healing properties of the human body, and demonstrating that these diseases that afflict almost everybody are unnatural and not the inevitable consequence of aging and not primarily genetics. They're predominantly a result of choices people make in their life. And unfortunately, people don't have enough information to make the right choices. They're living the way everybody else lives, and they become habituated. They first become indoctrinated to living, and then they become habituated to and addicted to these lifestyles that become very difficult to change when they start consuming self-destructive substances like bagels and pizza and croissants and cold cereals and apple juice, and they start eating dangerous substances that they can't stop eating. And they can't change their health trajectory, and they can't lose weight, and they can't get rid of their diabetes, and they can't do anything because they go to a doctor, and the doctor just gives them more pills and more pills and more pills and doesn't address the cause. So I've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to work with many thousands of people and aid in their ability to make a complete recovery. And that's been a joyous experience to watch people get well and to celebrate their wellness and recoveries with them. And that's what I'm very grateful for the career I've had. When I was younger, I made this choice.
Well, I'm grateful that you made that choice too, because I started my journey as well, and it started off as being raw vegan. That's how I was challenged to go raw vegan, and I couldn't believe how well I felt after 4 days, and I didn't feel bad, but I didn't know I could feel better, and so that led to a journey where even the raw food wasn't supporting me, and that's when I stumbled upon you. And I started feeling that, wait, this is the most balanced way to eat. And so I started adopting this lifestyle. And it is amazing when you start eating healthy. And I'm not talking about healthier, just eating healthy, because some people think that eating healthier is the answer, but they're eating things that aren't healthy. They think they're healthy because the marketing campaigns out there make it so that people think that they're healthy. That, like you said, that first they indoctrinate us, then they habituate us. But then what happens is there's like a mob mentality that if you don't eat, and when I started changing the way I was eating, people made fun of me. But this is what they don't know. People have made fun of me my whole life, so that's okay. I can handle it. But a lot of people can't, and they succumb to the pressure of eating like everybody else. What is your advice to someone who's just now starting this learning about food and nutrition? Maybe they just tuned in today for the first time, and they're feeling the pressure, or maybe think that there's nothing wrong with the food that they're eating.
Well, that's right. They're not only have been indoctrinated to think what's healthy, they think they're eating a healthy diet. And they don't
Correct.
realize that, well, they got to look around them. If everybody else is getting heart attacks and strokes and getting demented and getting cancers, there's not something wrong with this way of eating,
Yeah.
because you don't have to have those things happen to you. So we're eating a diet that causes premature death and untold amount of human tragedy, including people developing autoimmune diseases. And then they think that that's healthy eating. But if they choose to eat really healthy and break away from that way of eating and to start eating salads and mushrooms and quinoa, and so, they start eating these healthy foods that the human body thrives on, then they get, as you say, ostracized or peer pressure. Even children and teenagers get peer pressure to drink alcohol. Get peer pressure to smoke, but there's tremendous peer pressure to drink alcohol. Person says, I don't want to go to the bars, don't want to drink. How do they recreate? How do they get along with it? How do they get through college, get through high school even? So yeah, there's tremendous peer pressure to eat unhealthily, because in the United States, food is used as a recreational drug.
Yeah.
Right? Food is a recreational drug. And because eating unhealthily, eating fast foods and commercial baked goods and fried foods and oils, because those create depression and age the brain and cause neurologic impairment in neurologic pathways. And it makes people, so we're eating unhealthily, become dysthymic. And the more dysthymic means you're not totally depressed so you can't function, but you're not that thrilled about life. And you're not that passionate about living. You're not enjoying the outside world. You're not waking with a passion for it. You're not loving your life. You just kind of work so you can make money, so you can go and imbibe in recreational foods and alcohol. And so much of the American population has developed this addictive, they're almost all become addicted to eating, and eating becomes their primary source of recreation. So much so that they can make statements like, oh, if I had to eat like that, I'd rather be dead.
That's right.
Their feeling is, well, the only pleasure of living is eating. What other pleasure is life before? So the answer to your question is, people don't only have to learn about how to fuel the human organism so it doesn't get sick. They also have to learn how to see the world and have the wisdom to be able to not need the approval of other people for their own personal satisfaction or happiness. That comes from that's internally generated. And because we're also not only we're socialized and indoctrinated to think that eating, tuna fish and eggs and macaroni and cheese are good for us, right? Not only are we indoctrinated to think that eating cold cereal with milk on top is good for us, and pizza is a lunch and not an addiction, but we're also indoctrinated to think that getting people to like us more is the way we go after emotional health. Getting likes and looking better, getting more accolades and have people approve of us, and having other people feeling we're important and powerful individuals, and feeling that we can collect. So this is externally generated self-esteem, the need to have people like you and approve of you. And that doesn't hold water. It's a barrel with no bottom. And people they become addicted to that feeling of power, and they're never satisfied with their life. It's an unending barrel of dissatisfaction, and it leads to a person now unable to be different and to chart their own course. Because to live in a healthy life, like we're recommending, you have to be a leader, not a follower. You have to, and the people that have succeeded long term with dropping 50 pounds or dropping 100 pounds and keeping it off for a decade, and really revamping their health and not being tempted to go back and really loving living this way, those are people who feel like, well, my own health has enabled me to have more power to have a good effect on other people, and to be able to demonstrate that and to utilize my own health as a representative of my ability to have goodwill for others. And so we're saying here that when we interact with another individual, we have an opportunity to elevate ourselves and feel superior to them, or to have an opportunity to have goodwill for them. So there's no conflict. The person says to you, oh, if I had to eat that way, I'd rather be dead. Now the question is there a comeback that you could say to get your self-esteem elevated? But ego doesn't have to enter the equation.
No.
You don't have to care about whether you felt that, whether they insulted you, whether they didn't insult you. They said it doesn't matter. The only thing that really matters is that this interaction is an opportunity for you or us to have creative goodwill for this person and see, is there some way I can show this person I care about them? Or I can help them in some way. And it's the intent to have a good effect on them. It doesn't have to succeed, but the possibility, it has an intent with some possibility of showing them in some kind of care, that we build our own self-esteem without needing other people's approval. So we're saying here that building internally generated self-esteem comes from within us, not from how other people see us, number one. And number two, teaching people how to get pleasure from the world around them in a manner that appreciates the beauty and the structure of the universe, and also has to do with protecting the world, its beauty, and the planet for our own enjoyment and for the enjoyment of others and future generations. That also is a very thing that gives people passion in their heart. And you put together the ability, when you marry those things together, this creativity to try to help others with the protection of a natural environment, passion for the world around us, and seeing the world with this attitude of gratitude and appreciation and looking for the beauty around us, counteracts that negativity bias that addicts have. And with a food addict, the only thing they're interested in, when you're an addict, you just want to make your brain feel good. And you will not be a good mother or a good father or a good neighbor or a good, you don't care about other people that much when you just want your addiction. You just want your snort of cocaine. You just want your alcohol. You don't, the more you're an addict, when you're a heroin addict, you could steal and cheat and do anything to hurt other people. You just need your hit, right? And the more people are indoctrinated to and addicted to getting their food hits, the less their mind is consumed with the valuable things they could do in their life and their own passions. They develop the lack of neuroplasticity in the brain, and eating things that are addictive and gaining weight and becoming an addictive, unhealthy person. It makes the person unable to be as good of an architect, a good writer, a good librarian, a good artist, a good musician, whatever they want to do to pursue in their life. They're not going to be the best version of themselves when they're not taking care of their brain.
Yeah.
And when you're an addict and you're eating unhealthy, it allows the brain to degenerate and lose its ability for compassion as well. And we're seeing this politically in the way our country has gone in the last decade, where we've almost to the point of destroying our country with people with the combination, this marriage between brain destruction and anger and violence and lack of compassion and narcissism and selfishness and trying to go after power, right? So we have people who are now, so our country's in turmoil, but we're in turmoil at the base nutritionally, which contributes to all these issues.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
I wrote a book on this called Fast Food Genocide that discussed after the Civil War that the poor nutrition from eating a diet high in corn and molasses and pork in the South led many white Southerners to develop a disease called pellagra, where they get a red neck and they get a rash on them, but it also made them extremely violent and easily angered. And it led to actually homicidal and sometimes suicidal behaviors. A lot of people were put in prison, but it wasn't until the 1915 or 1915 when actually a doctor discovered this was a deficiency of niacin from not eating vegetables, right? And so that exacerbated all this anger and you could say illogical thinking and conspiracies thinking and believing in nonsensical, these nonsensical belief systems people have, which is generated today in our society similarly to what we saw back after the Civil War with all the lynching of blacks and the Jim Crow laws and the attacks and the violence. We're seeing that today with similar groups due to the growth of the fast food movement and people living on commercial baked goods and fast foods, not just leading to pellagra, but leading to wide spectrum deficiencies of antioxidants and phytochemicals that damage the brain.
Absolutely.
We're talking about sugar addiction, we're talking about flour addiction, we're talking about oil addiction, fried foods, fast food, all these things. And it doesn't just make you overweight and diabetic, it also damages your brain as well.
That's right. That's right. So, one of the things that, and why I want to talk about sugar addiction particularly today, is because I'm seeing more and more. I mean, I would never give a child an alcoholic drink or a cigarette or heroin or crack cocaine. I would never, and none of us would think that that would be normal. But
Not
then
crack
when
cocaine, it's regular cocaine.
Oh, right.
You wouldn't give crack cocaine, but okay.
No. But when you see a mother, and I remember as little as I knew about nutrition when my children were younger, as little as I knew not to give my child sugar or fried foods. And it wasn't until my daughter was 1, the tradition is you have a cake for them. And that was the first time my daughter had cake. But now I look back at that tradition when a child turns 1. But prior to 1, they're now still having lots of sugar. The parent is giving them that drug. They're giving them without even thinking it of as a drug. Can you talk about what happens to a child when their mind, when they start consuming sugar at such an early age?
Right. And also we should be clear that we're talking here about when you eat sugar, it spikes glucose into your bloodstream. And when you eat white flour, it spikes glucose into your bloodstream so strongly that it's a sugar equivalent. So there's no essential difference from eating a sugar cube or candy as there would be with having a burger bun or a pizza or a croissant or a bagel. It's or a white bread or some cold cereals or Fruit Loops and corn. In other words, these refined carbohydrates have such a high caloric rush and such a high glycemic load. And those terms mean that you flood calories into the bloodstream, and the spike of calories into the bloodstream affects the brain and lights up the same areas of the brain that are lit up by opiates. Natural foods, having an apple or some berries or some string beans or some could never have spiked as much calories into the blood so rapidly. But when you extract the sugar from the apple, without remove it from the fiber, or you take the white flour out of the whole wheat germ, we can allow those calories to give ourselves a caloric hit, and it turns a food into a drug. So now we have Americans getting most of their calories in the form of a drug, not in the form of a food. Meaning the form of a drug is you hit the calories in the bloodstream at a level that can stimulate the brain. And we combine that, and oil is also like, let's say the American diet gets its fat from animal fats like butter and bacon and oils. And the Nutritarian diet that I recommend gets its fat from nuts and seeds and avocado, which are whole food forms of fat. So the fat enters the bloodstream very slowly over hours, not over minutes, preventing a caloric rush. But the combination of people eating, French fries or fried eggplant, or they're getting oils, grease, and a bagel, and a pizza, and sugar, right? So we have a huge amount of spike of calories in the bloodstream. And that leads to brain dysfunction. First, in the body can't convert it to energy effectively, because in order to convert sugar into energy, you need cofactors of vitamins and minerals. And so because it's not converted effectively into energy, the person still feels fatigued, and those calories are shunted more to fat storage without producing enough energy. And the energy that is produced produces a host of free radicals and reduces B vitamin exposure. So now we have more toxicity in the tissues with more inflammation going on, and we're leading to nutritional deficiencies. And I'm saying that long life and cellular damage is prevented by having nutritional concentration in the cells as compared to diluting nutrition concentration and increasing toxicity in the cell. And that diluting nutritional concentration and enhancing toxicity when we're young is a bigger contributor to cancer when we're middle-aged or elderly than would be nutritional deficiencies and toxicity when you were older. Because what you do when you're earlier in life has a more stronger effect than what you do later in life. Because when the cells are replicating and growing and dividing, their DNA is more unraveled and more potential for damages to start to occur in the DNA. And it's damage to the DNA that occurred decades earlier that eventually result in cancer flourishing later on in life. We've even discovered, for example, when a child gets a brain tumor at the age of 11 years old, it's linked back to the diet the mother ate before she even got pregnant. It's still caused by diet, but it's not the diet the kid ate, because it's the diet the mother ate. And we're seeing that the lack of green vegetables in the mother's diet, not just during pregnancy, but even years prior to conception, in conjunction with the exposure to luncheon meats, processed meats like bacon and hot dogs and pastrami, though that combination of lack of vegetables and high processed meats damages the eggs in a way that makes it more prone to having a childhood cancer or a brain tumor or autism in the child. So we're seeing that it's not even our own diet doesn't even just affect ourselves, it can affect future generations as well. Mm-hmm. And so when they say this disease is genetic, yeah, it's genetic to a degree, but it's not really genetic, but it's more like passed on through generations, that because we never saw these cancers, these brain tumors, these autoimmune conditions never occurred in human history. They're only in the last 50 years they're exploding, because we're weakening the genes and we're causing a tremendous damage to the potential for human survival. And that's why I wrote the book Fast Food Genocide, to discuss what we're doing with the processed and fast food movement in the last 50 years and the growing waistlines of Americans And we see that opposition to this way of thinking is still trying to tell people, you can be okay to be overweight. You can be healthy and overweight simultaneously. There's no such thing as an unhealthy food. Anything you eat is good for you. There's all people getting all mixed messages and billions of dollars spent to try to convince people it's okay to eat fast food, junk food, meats, bacon, all these things. And there's billions of dollars spent on that. There's no money. There's almost nothing spent on trying to tell people to eat broccoli and string beans and artichokes and asparagus and tomatoes and onions and mushrooms. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
in any
Yeah.
case, it's all it's a vicious cycle, and it's obviously a dangerous cycle for the future of our world too.
Yeah, and now that I know what I know, like I can't go back and reverse the mistakes that I made, and I really truly believe there's no mistakes, there's growth opportunities, and I really have learned through my lifestyle, my lifetime, some of the things that if I could go back, I would do different, but I have an opportunity now to do it different. And so, yeah, when we choose to do something different, you do have that mob mentality saying, hey, join the club, or else we'll just excommunicate you. We won't invite you to our homes. We won't do these things. And so we got to care more about our health than we do about what people think of us. And so that's just the bottom line for me. And so with that in mind, I know that many people know that they're addicted to sugar, but they're in denial. They're in denial. What are some of the telltale signs that you have found that could tell somebody today, you're an addict if let's talk about sugar specifically.
Well, if they're the question is, why do people put things in their mouth that are self-destructive to their own survival? Why would they do that? We know that we don't want to be alive and be demented when we get older. We don't want to have stroke. We know that sugar consumption doesn't just cause weight gain and diabetes, it causes strokes and dementias, right? We don't want to be stuck in the worst thing would be alive without your brain intact. That would be really in something, or being crippled and being alive with your brain not intact. And we know that diabetes is still the #1 cause of leg amputation and kidney failure and brain dysfunction. And we know there's a dose-dependent relationship between the consumption of commercial baked goods and fast foods. And I'm saying commercial baked goods are sugar, bread, white flour products and baked goods are sugar. And the dose with those foods and depression, the dose-dependent relationship with those foods and depression. Even 2 servings a week leads to a 50%. And the brain destruction is so significant that people in the highest quintile of candy and sugar consumption are more likely to be arrested for a violent crime or drug-related offense. I'm saying that donuts and candy and sugar is the gateway drug to alcohol and other more serious drugs to lead people into drug addiction. And also when people that are cocaine addicts and they're alcoholics, they don't really get rid of their addiction. They just switch to different addictions. They switch them onto donuts and cookies from alcohol and cocaine. They still wind up just being a sugar addict. So their health is going to deteriorate. There's no elderly, obese people in good health. They don't exist. They die young. And every overweight person is spewing out cytokines and lipokines from their fat stores, because it's just poorly perfused tissue. There's not nutrients and blood supply to your huge fat supply, and it becomes a source of estrogen production, inflammation, and it reduces immunity. It suppresses gene silencing. It interferes with the ability of cells to recognize abnormal cells and remove cancers. And it makes you insulin resistant, which then makes insulin, a higher level of insulin, which then promotes cellular replication and cancer cells to grow. So nobody escapes from the fact that if you're overweight, you have higher risk of cancer. That's just a fact. And if you eat healthy, and if you were eating healthfully, you would not be overweight. But people think they can't lose weight because they try to eat what they consider healthfully, but they don't realize how a little bit of oil on the food or a little bit of sugar can completely stop the body's ability to break down fat. Even a couple of servings a week of oily or greasy food or sugary food can make it difficult for the body to lose weight, so they think it's impossible to lose weight. But the minute they get to a point of complete abstaining from their addictive substance. And the only way to really get rid of addiction is completely to abstain. And then the person realizes that they can go without alcohol, or they can go without sugar, and they can, if they're away from it for a few weeks, but once they're keep taking it in, it keeps lighting the fire under their desire and makes the primitive brain unable to deal with the absence of that substance. So the primitive brain is going to object. It's going to object with excuses and negativity and reasons why it's too hard and too difficult. And then it keeps the person so they can't see any benefit and makes it impossible. And then then they have to rationalize why there's no point in dieting either, because it's impossible to lose weight, to diet and lose weight. So this flipping to a nutritarian diet is completely different because it's more radical, it's more strict. But when you jump in with both feet to such an extreme level of nutritional excellence, your taste buds explode with the ability to enjoy the sweets of natural fruits. You get more enjoyment from eating in general. Sugar becomes too sweet once you stay away from it for a while. Salt becomes too salty once you stay away from it long enough. These things, so you have to stay away from these things. If you keep having them, you don't get to the place where you really can live comfortably without them. It's like any addiction, right? Any addiction, the person needs space away from their addictive triggers. And some people can have a drink of alcohol once in a while, but for other people, a drink once in a while encourages them to want more of it and leads to alcoholic type behavior, right? And that's so the case with regard to food. Some people could eat healthfully and once in a while have a treat, and other people, they just can't, that just would want them to have a treat. They would just can't, their whole diet is a treat and they can't stop themselves. And then they go off they dabble in addictive foods and they just can't, they just go all off it all. They're so dabbling so much, they don't see any benefit. They don't see any of the miraculous changes that we're seeing where the high blood pressure normalizes and the diabetes goes away and the weight pours off you and the headaches go away and you no longer have a brain fog and all these things we're claiming won't occur for them because they see dabbling in these addictive substances.
Or I want to add to that, and what happens is they do it for a short period of time and they start feeling really bad because their body is so toxic, it's getting rid of all the toxins, that they give up because their desire is not as great as their commitment is not greater than their desire, because the desire to quit an addiction will come and go, but the commitment must remain the same. The commitment must be the one that they focus on. But it's interesting how many people say, oh, I gave up all that stuff and I just felt sick, and nothing happened. They give up too soon. What is the amount of time, Dr. Fuhrman, that someone could see change in their body when they make a commitment to eat a nutritarian lifestyle or to achieve optimal nutrition?
That's right. It's a very important point you bring up because a person doesn't know that stopping cocaine makes you feel worse. It doesn't make you feel better. When you stop smoking, you start coughing for a few months because your body is able to heal the damage to the lung that it couldn't heal. So the lung was like indurated and calloused and not reacting to the smoke until you stopped it. Then it's going to start to, if it can, repair itself. After a few weeks, it's going to try to get rid of the garbage and you're going to be coughing and feeling sick. You could feel better by smoking. You can feel better when you shoot up with heroin again. That's called withdrawal. But there's also healing that that makes you uncomfortable. And the word inflammation has to do with the body's efforts to destroy and wall off and remove injurious agents. And so inflammation, it's correct to say that a person improving their health can temporarily feel worse for the first week. And sometimes there could be a second, so they usually feel somewhat better after the first 7 to 10 days. But as the body starts to heal and improve its health and get replenish nutritional stores, there can be what we call a secondary healing crisis, which then the person starts to feel bad again. And the body tries to institute deeper cleaning, and they get skin rash and fatigue and poor sleeping and waking up at night to urinate more, and they get other symptoms that could be somewhat disturbing. And you're right, they have to stay committed to living healthfully, and they have to recognize that feeling bad is getting better, and you don't stop feeling bad until, months away, that you're staying away from addictive substances for months. That's why when you go to a drug rehab center, they keep you there for 3 months. That's why when people come to my retreat with food addiction, I want them to stay if they could 3 months, because we want them to have a long enough period of time, because the longer you're away from these addictive triggers, it decreases the chance of recidivism and the pull to want to have those substances, and enabling the body to make the transformation you're talking about to really see the magic happen, and that magic does happen. And then, of course, when you're doing this on your own, reading the books, watching the videos, getting the supportive community around you, you have to stay committed. And I wrote that in my book, Eat to Live, which I wrote in 2002, published first in 2003, the first version of Eat to Live. I wrote, number one, don't decide whether you want to do this or not. First, make sure you read the whole book first, because don't just jump to the recipes, because there's no advantage to doing it short term. There's only advantage if you do it and should make the changes for the rest of your life. And you have to know why you're doing this. And number two, don't say you're going to give it a try, because giving it a try isn't going to work. It's going to be harder than that. If you're saying you're going to give it a try, that means you prepare yourself to fail. You have to make a strong commitment. A strong commitment means no matter what happens, I'm doing this.
Yep.
That's where you get to the end goal. You don't become a world-class tennis player or anything in life that's really that takes tremendous skill, unless you've done it persistently and and over again the right way for a long period of time.
Without a doubt, that's so true, so true. And by the way, I've been to the Eat to Live retreat center in California. It is amazing. And if you would like to go, please call them. I can contact me. I'll give you the information. You can go to drfuhrman.com, but let them know that Lily sent you. Lily sent you there. It is an amazing place to get started, especially if this is something that you're serious about. Again, it's about commitment. I wouldn't be married 30 years. Celebrating my 30th wedding anniversary, if I were just, had a desire to stay married. It's a commitment to the commitment. And that's what we're talking about today. If sugar has played a key role, and we're just talking about sugar today, we're going to be doing other classes on addiction, other addictions, and how to beat addictions. And it has to do with commitment, not desire. Desires come and go. You must be committed to the commitment. So if you are committed to your health, go to whenyouneedafriend.com. This is where the buck stops here. This is where you take ownership and responsibility for your life. As you know, I always say you can take a pill, you can take responsibility. It's not that I'm against the pill, but if there weren't a pill to prescribe for you whatever condition you have, what would you do differently? And that is the question that we always ask here in the classroom, is that what can you do differently to live the lifestyle naturally without drugs, that can also help you short term, but also cause problems in the future. So go to whenyouneedafriend.com. While you're there, please subscribe, like and follow me on social media. Make sure that you share this video with your friends and the people that you love. Maybe go in together and say, okay, we're going to do a sugar fast, and we're going to get some tips from Dr. Fuhrman when we get back with him to discuss about sugar addiction and how can we end this craving so that it'll end the addiction. And so go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Please let them know about this. Also, make sure that you go to my Shop Now bag, support the classroom there, check out some of the Lilly approved products, support our sponsors. And it's so important that if you become a helper of the classroom, an enrolled student in the classroom, and you can help by donating $1 or $1,000 a month, or a one-time donation of your time, your talent, your treasure, whatever you can do to help the classroom is very much appreciated. And we so appreciate Dr. Joel Fuhrman. You can find him at drfuhrman.com. There's so many different things. I know that he just recently did a course on sugar and beating sugar cravings. And can people purchase that after the fact, Dr. Fuhrman?
I don't think so. I always have courses coming up in my,
Okay.
in the near future, and which means people join me and they, on a period of time where they're learning, educating, working together, getting the support. And I have, evergreen masterclasses.
Yeah.
Like when you join drfuhrman.com, you get a 20 lecture masterclass on learning all about the Nutritarian diet. That's comes with membership. So even if there's not a live course, they can jump in one of the
Yeah.
master classes and download it all the time,
Yeah. So I didn't know if you had that for the sugar course, because that is a huge problem. Maybe you can bring it out and make it an evergreen, because that is a huge
Not
problem.
I'm working with Nathan on that course, but it's not my own course. So it's his
Oh,
course.
okay, okay. Well, this is one when you're thinking about, changing our life. Sugar is like I've often said that food addictions are probably the toughest addictions, because we don't need to do crack, we don't need to smoke, we don't need to drink alcohol. As long as we're drinking water, that's all we need. We don't need to drink coffee. I mean, we can just these things we don't need to do, but we do need to eat. And along with that, if you're eating processed foods, there's lots of sugars. There, like you said, flour, and there's other contaminants of the food. So what are some of the ways, Dr. Fuhrman, that people can eat and cut the cravings, become aware, oh, I'm having a craving. Maybe it's because I'm thirsty, or maybe because I'm depressed, and identify maybe the emotion. What do you suggest for people that identify that they do crave sugar, that they are addicted to sugar? And like I used to be, and I know that if I do, like all these years that I've not been addicted to sugar, if I have sugar or something with sugar, something happens that triggers me right away. Fortunately, I can bounce back and say, okay, well, that's not good for me. And I can start all over again. But some people can't. They just keep going down that slippery slope. So what is your advice for people that want to stop the addiction and the addictive personalities for sugar? What are some of the tips that you can give?
First of all, they have to eat fruit. We're not talking about taking away all sugar out of the diet. We're talking about taking all free sugar out of the diet and white flour out of the diet. That fruit is different type. It doesn't rush into the bloodstream quickly, and it's combined with minerals, vitamins, and phytochemicals and fiber. So when a banana or an apple or some grapes or a mango doesn't satisfy you, then you have sugar addiction. So if you're looking for something sweeter than a piece of fruit, then you're an addict. And we recommend people eat dessert, by the way, because dessert is a very important part of a healthy lifestyle, because it marks the end of eating for the day. So after you eat a normal sized plate of food for dinner, you have a dessert, and then you stop eating the rest of the night
Right.
after 6 o'clock at night.
That's a huge myth, Dr. Fuhrman, that if you don't eat this crappy food that they're giving you as desserts, that somehow you can't have. I make some incredible desserts that get people turned on to maybe this Nutritarian thing is not so bad after all. So that's the first thing I give people to get them excited about eating healthy.
Right. So making good desserts, but it's simple as taking some frozen cherries out of your freezer at the beginning of the meal, so they're partially defrosted, or frozen mango out of your freezer. It's not that. You can make very simple, just a fruit-based dessert, or just eat a piece of fresh fruit that's good and in season, a piece of melon or something. But fruit is designed to be our sweetening agent. And then with people who want to making a fancy dessert like you're talking about, it's still made of, let's say, could be made of oats and fruit, or could be made with an ice cream and with the freezing, so the bananas and the walnuts and the tofu, whatever it is, to make a dessert, or making some kind of thing with agar, like a jello type dessert with cinnamon and vanilla in it. You'll make all, but we're still never using more than one medjool date per serving per person, plus the original fruit in the dessert. Because even then, we're not using too much dried fruit. If we're adding dried fruit as a sweetening agent, which is the only sweetening agent we use. So we're not using like sorbitol and xylitol and all these low calorie sweeteners, because the no calorie sweeteners are also linked to strokes, and they also perpetuate the desire for consuming substances of a highly sweetened, and they perpetuate a person's desire for excessively sweetened substances. When fruit becomes your only source of sweetener, then you start to realize that lettuce has a sweet taste and avocados have some sweetness in them. And, so then we could start to realize that natural foods, we can sense, and that things that are so heavily sweetened to the American taste buds past the bliss point have deadened our taste for the natural flavor of foods. And they're actually weakening our ability to enjoy some strawberries, which have almost no taste to a person whose sugar tasting has been diminished by excessive stimulation. But people are habituated to eating excessive calories. And I see them, I'm eating with them, I'm watching them, and I'm watching them heap huge loads of food on their plate and feel like they need to eat to keep their energy up because they're feeling fatigue if they don't eat. So they're already completely, you could say, instinctually desirous of excessive food because of the lack of sugar's ability to give them sufficient energy and because of the low nutrients retention in their tissues. So they're using food as a stimulant. They got to keep eating all the time or keep the digestive tract overstuffed to keep their energy up. So one of the primary symptoms of withdrawal and detox and recovery from addiction is you have to expect that you're going to be fatigued until you start to fix the problems in your tissues. And you can't eat in response to dealing with your fatigue. You should be eating when you're hungry, not when you're fatigued. And fatigue is good if you're not eating, because that means you're detoxing. So you have to be able to realize, get some extra rest or sleep if you want, but don't eat to minimize your fatigue. You built up layers of fatigue from your unhealthy diet over the years. And when you stop eating those foods, you unmask it and you feel wiped out. And then people are excessively, so I'm seeing it all the time, I'm saying, don't eat to deal with your fatigue. This is going to go away in a few weeks of just eating healthfully. Get some, so stop using. So they think they have to eat huge amounts of food. It's just amazing how they've been indoctrinated to eat so many huge amounts of food that humans could have never survived on this planet for all these hundreds of millions of years or hundreds of thousands of years if people had to consume so many calories. How could they find so many calories? So we have the average American consuming over 3,000 calories a day, actually 3,300 calories a day, when all ancient populations and primitive populations consume around half that many calories. You know what I mean? So we're eating double the amount of calories we need to eat as in the modern world. And I always say half of what we eat meets our needs, and the other half meets the needs of our doctors. Which means, and it's not even a joke because it's what's really happening.
But it is funny. But it is funny.
And you can't lose weight and get rid of addictions unless you flood your body with healthy substances, with healthy nutrients. And that means healthy food. And that means and it also means green vegetables and onions and mushrooms. You have to start to eat healthy food to be able to have your cells function normally and not crave unhealthy food.
Any other tips that you can give when it comes to stopping a craving? Just go out and get fruit, or just what can you do if you're having a craving, you're going through your refrigerator, you're going through your pantry, and all of a sudden you ask yourself this question?
It's eating this meal, eating this correct meal that has salad or green vegetables with it, beans with it, and some nuts and seeds with it. And then after you have, which delay gastric emptying and make you feel more satisfied with less calories, and then you top that meal off with some fresh fruit. And when you hit all those boxes, when you check all those boxes, you feel satisfied with fewer amount of calories because you've activated both your stretch receptors, your fiber receptors, and your nutrient receptors. And that's the full variety of foods, of course, delays gastric emptying as if you're taking Ozempic or a drug because you have the variety of different types of food categories in your meal. So by eating right, it gives people the opportunity to deal with these discomfort that are become unrelenting and unable to manage when they're eating wrongly. So as they're trying to cut back on calories on an unhealthy diet, the biological desires to overeat and to eat bad food is too strong for the person to resist. They have to start flooding their body with good food, which doesn't only crowd out the bad food, it also supplies the nutrients and the fiber and the biochemical integrity to it to stop those cravings, which is necessary to stop the cravings.
Very good. Okay, so what about some of the people that say, well, good for you, but I've got diabetes, I can't have fruit, or I've got this. There are a lot of myths about nutrition, and people believe this, and your belief becomes your reality. So if you're dealing with somebody that has diabetes now, and they're listening to you and saying, they're going, I mean, if I have sugar, I'm going to have to need, it's going to hurt diabetes, or, so what's your advice to them?
Well, that could take a whole hour show to describe the mechanism, the biology of how that works. But when you follow a Nutritarian diet and have all these fibers present, it supports the growth of all these healthy bacteria in the gut. It reduces insulin resistance. So your body, of course, because you're losing the fat on the insulin receptors, particularly saturated fat. Saturated fat predominantly comes from animal products. which then distorts the function of the insulin receptor. So you get the saturated fat out of your insulin receptors, the body loses its visceral fat, and then you restore the nutritional integrity of the pancreas to produce insulin according to the person's needs. So yes, the person rapidly becomes non-diabetic, and I'll give you a statistic that is shocking, and that is that 75% of type 2 diabetics that I see become non-diabetic in the first 6 weeks of following this program. Non-diabetic means their sugars are running below 100 and they don't need any medications to have them stay there. So it's just amazing. They ate healthy for 30 years of their life. They've been overweight for 30 years. They've had diabetes for 15, 20 years, and all of a sudden in 6 weeks, they're non-diabetic. It's just utterly amazing. And for most people, and for the other 25%, almost all of those still get rid of diabetes within 6 months. They just take a little longer. But when they, so this, it works. So it's so shockingly effective that you could say the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and diabetes goes away.
And you have great recipes, Nutritarian recipes for pudding too. So I just want to, just all these books with Dr. Fuhrman, and I've got the one, I've got the Eat to Live and right there, but I didn't put it on my desk. But
Eat for Life is my most recent book.
Eat for Life, yeah, that's the one I have.
That's what I'm recommending
Yeah,
first.
yeah, and so Eat for Life, I'm just gonna reach out for it right here. Here you go. So here's Dr. Fuhrman's Eat for Life. It's always by my desk. Great recipes in all his book. One of my favorites is the Eat to Live Quick and Easy. There's some great recipes there that I still use many, many years later. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be making some chickpea curry in a hurry this next week because it's one of our favorites. I haven't done it in a while. I'm like, why haven't I done this? This is so easy and so tasty, and I can batch cook. It's such a nice way to live your life without being obsessed with what's going to be your next meal. Many of the foods that the recipes I like to batch cook. That way I can freeze them, I have them for the next time, and I can thaw it and eat it, and it tastes just as good as the first time. Any tips for people that don't have time to cook and all they do is go to fast food restaurants? What's your tip for them?
My tip for them is to that frozen food is incredibly convenient. Frozen peas, frozen mango, frozen blueberries, frozen artichoke hearts, frozen asparagus. It's so easy. You don't have to cook. You're just going to open a bag of vegetables and put some Thai curry sauce on it. I even make a Thai curry sauce you can buy from me, or sprinkle some dukkha on it, some toasted nuts and herbs on top of the green vegetables. It's so easy to make food taste good. And you can cook in ways that are very convenient. You buy lettuce that's already pre-washed. You just dump it in a bowl and put a tomato in with it, put some dressing on top, and you get a healthy dressing. And you can make it yourself, or you could buy the dressing already made, the healthy dressing already made. So the point is that this is not hard to do it. It just takes a different mentality. And a person, as you said earlier, they have to make a commitment and they have to be dedicated to it.
I will tell you, since you mentioned dressings, we love the goddess dressing. I love the basil dressing, and we switch back and forth. I have a garden, and I have basil in my garden, and so I love to cut up the basil, and we alternate with I think it's called green goddess, or the goddess. It's not the one with the cashews and the hemp seeds, and it's amazing how quickly I don't have to go to the grocery store to get my dressing full of fructose corn syrup. I can just make something healthy. It's a nutritarian. It's so, and I got that the goddess recipe in the infection perfection or infection protection that you had. Yeah, that was.
But we have more than like 2,000 recipes. drfuhrman.com, and you can put in your category of what you want to look up, and you can see the rating of how other members have rated the dressing. And I think one of our highest rated dressings is that healthy Caesar dressing, which has a bit of,
I'll have to try that one.
Yeah, but we have such incredibly good dressings, and we also, for people who don't even want to make a dressing, they could buy the dressing and buy it in a bottle and have it shipped to them. So we're making it so that the person has no excuses. They could make a choice, and as you're saying, they can make a choice to be sick or to be well and live their life without fear. And that's what we're saying that's part of the joy of being a nutritarian, is to be able to fully enjoy our lives and to live without fear and the need to be, the need for so medical dependent.
Well, I always get somebody to say to me, well, we all have to die from something, right? And Dr. Furman, I found out, that you have a 95-year-old mother who is thriving and she's just absolutely wonderful. She did a great job with you, and I'm sure fruit does not fall far from the tree. And so somebody's going to say to me, yeah, but you got to die from something. And I always say, but how do you want to live? How do you want to live? And I know that with a nutritarian lifestyle and if you're eating a healthy life or a healthy lifestyle, you can live, way past 95, 120, as you say sometimes. And,
No, I don't say
if,
120.
no, you don't say 120.
No, I say I'm happy with 105 to I'm happy with 95 to 105. In other words, people to be happy
Okay.
with good health to 100 years old, and then not having a lot of disability in their later life, but
Yeah.
fading away and dying peacefully. But I'm not advocating that most people be 120.
Well,
It's
I,
good enough to
I,
live, because the average American, don't forget, is dying between 75 and 80 years old.
and some
That's the
people
average.
and some people are living up to 75 and 80 years old with a disease since they were 40.
Yeah, they're
So,
diseased and they lost mental function, and they're put in nursing homes, and they have died. They have all kinds of medical problems. So we're talking about living with great emotional and physical health, being physically active, being able to drive, to do things, take care of yourself, and have your full mental faculties to 100 years old. That's the
well,
goal.
well, Dr. Furman, I am so grateful that I found you in 2015 and that you continue to share your wisdom in the classroom. I'm so grateful to you. And so I just want to encourage all of you that if you want to read one book this year, this is the book to read. And then go to the Eat to Live Retreat Center in California. It is worth your time. And just know that everything can be reversed or maybe even improved upon. Even if you have a diagnosis that you've been told nothing could make it better. Some people tell me, oh, diabetes is hereditary and they can't do anything about it. That's not true. There's a lot that you can do, even if it's just to make it easier on you, your body, your symptoms, or whatever it is. There's always room for improvement. Thank you, Dr. Fuhrman, for everything you do to make our life a more pleasant place to live. So everybody share this video with your friends. Let people know that there is a choice and we can make it. We just need to make a commitment. Thank you, Dr. Fuhrman, for everything you do. And we'll see you all. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Joel Fuhrman wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.